Zoom and take leaders' questions under Standing Order 36. Deputy Mary Lou McDonald, please.
Thank you, Ceann Comhairle. Taoiseach, hospitals are under enormous pressure. Chronic overcrowding means constant chaos in emergency departments. We're all painfully aware of the year-round crisis that sees hundreds of patients suffer the indignity of lying on trolleys. More than 600 people were on trolleys in our hospitals yesterday. It's 528 today. However, a not so visible but very real consequences of overcrowding is the soaring level of hospital appointment cancellations. On the watch of this government last year, 250,000 hospital appointments were cancelled. That's a record. That's, in each case, a phone call to somebody who has waited with worry to be told that the care they need has now been cancelled. Taoiseach, 800 chemotherapy appointments for children were cancelled. Cancer touches all of us in some way during our lives. When somebody receives a cancer diagnosis, the world stands still. In that moment, life comes to a shuddering halt as all the possibilities hit at once, and the long, hard road to be travelled opens up in a flash. When a child receives such a diagnosis, these feelings are amplified beyond what most of us could even contemplate. A cancer diagnosis for a child must be utterly devastating for a family. And the instinct of any parent in that situation is to go to the ends of the earth to care for their child. You want to know that the system has got your child, that the system will catch them, that the system has their back. So just imagine the cancellation of a child's chemotherapy appointment. The cancellation of an appointment that you know is a big part of your child's fight. Government has to stop this happening, Taoiseach. To stop the problem of cancellations, government must solve chronic overcrowding created by your government's policy. Any of us who have seen the dedication of doctors and nurses caring for cancer patients are literally blown away. They live and breathe for their patients, but we need more of them. We don't have enough healthcare staff right across the system. Dr. Peadar Gilligan of University Hospital Limerick, I think, said it most clearly, and let me quote him. There is simply not enough of us to deliver the ever-increasing needs of the population. Yet we have an ongoing recruitment freeze imposed by the HSE due to lack of funding from government. That's it. And this dire situation is reflected in hospitals across the state. Overcrowding is linked directly to the lack of beds in the system. You've been told this repeatedly by professional bodies, by patient groups and by ordinary people themselves. Capacity is a big problem. Tána hospidéal ro flódatha go dona. The war sin bhí 800 cuine chemotherapy curtha ceall de páistí an uri. Tá fear ahrú in our service sláinte ag tastal go dona. We need a change of direction. Taoiseach, Fine Gael have been in government for 13 years, for far too long. And more of the same won't cut it. Our health service is crying out for change. So to ensure that no child's chemotherapy appointment is cancelled due to crisis in the system, government has to increase bed capacity. We need 3,000 additional hospital and community beds, and well you know it. And then crucially, we need to end the recruitment embargo imposed by your government to relieve pressure on hospitals and to ensure that sick and sometimes very sick people get the care that they need.
Thank you, Deputy McDonald. Taoiseach, please.
Thanks very much, Ceann Comhairle. Can I firstly just welcome students from the Politics and Sociology Department of AT Sligo to the Dáil today, who I know are here with Deputy Kenny. You're very welcome to Leinster House. I want to thank Deputy McDonald for raising this important issue in relation to wait times. I would just say that it is a little disingenuous the way the figures have been presented this morning, and it's not just my words, in the press release that your party issued this morning suggesting a large increase in the number of hospital procedures cancelled in 2023 to 2022, accompanied to that press release that's on your website, the HSE did specifically say, please don't compare one year with the last because it's not comparable. In fact, they actually specifically said it wouldn't be reflective and should not be compared with 2023. So it is important when we put information into the public domain that we are accurate in relation to it. The HSE put in writing to you that comparing the figures that they gave your health spokesperson for 22 to 23 isn't an accurate way because of data collection issues. That's there in black and white for people to read. Nonetheless, there are very important issues in relation to waiting times in our health service. I am pleased that we are now beginning to see wait times improve in the Irish Health Service. They're not improving in England, they're worsening. They're not improving in Scotland, they're worsening. They're not improving just up the road in Northern Ireland, they're worsening. They have now improved for the last 2 years here in this country. But we have a hell of a long way to go, and I fully accept that. You talk quite rightly about the need for more staff, but it is important, Deputy, to acknowledge that since the last general election in 2020, we have 28,000 additional staff working in the Irish Health Service. 28,000 more people are working in the health service. And when you talk about recruitment freezes and pauses and the likes, it does ignore the reality that this year the Irish Health Service has money to hire 2,200 additional staff. So to people watching in from home, I want you to know that. It's not true to say that the Irish Health Service won't hire more nurses this year, or more doctors, or more speech and language therapists. It will. And when you include disability services, that number of 2,200 rises to a number of just over 3,000. So there will be thousands more people working in the Irish Health Service, in hospitals and in the community and in disability services this year compared to last year, and thousands more last year compared to the year before. You quite rightly point out the issue in relation to bed capacity. And again, I agree, we do need more beds in our Irish Health Service. Dr. Gilligan is entirely correct. That's why, again, since the last general election in 2020, we've opened 1,100 more beds. And it's why the Minister for Health now has funding for 1,500 additional beds as well. I think you're absolutely right to raise the issue of cancer, because there isn't a family or a community in Ireland who hasn't been touched by cancer. Of that, I think we can all agree. And it is important to say that while we have more work to do in relation to cancer in this country, there are encouraging signs when it comes to cancer survival rates. We've seen a very significant improvement in survival rates in Ireland, right across all cancers and right across all ages. We now have 215,000 people living in Ireland following a cancer diagnosis, compared to 150,000 in 2017. And we've seen reduced cancer mortality rates by 14% for men and 13% for women. That's a better improvement than the European average of just 10% and 5% respectively as well. We have a plan to eradicate cervical cancer. Huge progress has been made, and I note your support on that for the HPV vaccine and the likes. We can actually eradicate a cancer in this country by 2040, and the Minister for Health will publish the plan in relation to how he intends to do that this year as well. So I accept wait times in Ireland are too high, but I also have to say, as a point of fact, wait times are improving. More and more people are now getting seen within the Sláinte Care targets, which all parties in this Dáil, including your own, have signed up to. Bed capacity is growing, staff numbers are growing, the health budget is growing and will continue to. And to any parent of a sick child, and most particularly to a parent of a sick child with cancer, I want them to know that. I want them to know that we will continue to invest more in the services to make sure that their child has the best outcome. I want them to know that they live in a country that has really good outcomes when it comes to cancer care.
Thank you, Taoiseach. Deputy McDonald.
Taoiseach, I didn't raise with you the issue of wait times. I raised the issue of cancellations. And 250,000, that's 250,000 hospital cancellations. That's a record. We don't have to compare it with anything. That is a record level of cancellations. And it included 800 cancellations of children's chemotherapy appointments. I'm astonished actually by the Taoiseach's approach to this. Mm-hmm. It appears that you wish to argue statistical presentational issues rather than the fact. You're not challenging, I'm sure, the fact that there were 250,000 hospital cancellations. You accept that, Taoiseach, do you? Do you accept also that there were 800 cancellations of chemotherapy appointments for children? And I don't care whether you thank me, whether your view of me is irrelevant on this issue. I want it sorted out. It's not acceptable that children with a cancer diagnosis that have their chemotherapy appointments cancelled. And I raised with you specifically the employment embargo, which is real. You call it right enough, an employment control update and framework. But the embargo is real and it needs to be removed. If, as you say, you wish the best outcomes for all patients, including children, well then lift the recruitment embargo. It's not complicated.
Taoiseach, please.
Deputy, Leader's question is about you and it's not about me, and on that we can agree. I have nothing but respect for you. But that's not what this is about. But when you decide, this morning in advance of coming into Leader's questions, you decide to issue a press release with statistics. No, you did. You can roll your eyes, but you push it out and you'll all retweet it. Sorry, don't. Sorry.
I'm going to let the Taoiseach reply.
No, it's not
let the Taoiseach reply.
I'm just asking that when you're talking to the people at home, that you actually do give them the facts, that the HSE specifically asked Sinn Féin not to do what you did today in relation to comparing data. That's the first point. The second point is wait times and cancellations and how long it takes to see a doctor are all absolutely interlinked. And what I want people to know at home, most particularly parents of children with cancer, is that they are living in a country where the number of people working to look after their child is increasing, where the number of beds available for their child's care is increasing, where the budget for the health service to support their child is increasing as well. And these are important facts because we can't just seek to exploit every single challenge. More children are being treated, more money is going in, and when you talk about a recruitment embargo, you have to point out that 2,200 more staff will be hired this year. Look, the only thing that vanished here, what happened, and I'd like to know yesterday, after I raised the issue of Sinn Féin's alternative budget for health, why it disappeared and vanished like Shergar from your website. I have a copy of it here. This is your commitment to the Irish people. Why did you take it down yesterday? Because parents need to know. Parents need to know, and they have every right to know that your party provided less money for their children's healthcare than our party did, and put the plan back up on the website.
Taoiseach, the time is up, please. Could
That's a terrible answer.
please, can we?
Shameful of you. And you're telling lies. You're telling lies about Sinn Féin.
Deputy Doherty, you're not the leader of the party. These are leaders' questions. You're not the leader. Now, please, would you look at Deputy? We're returning to this strategic heckling approach. Please do not. Please stop heckling. Please stop. Please, if the government side would stop heckling as well, would help. Deputy Bacik, please.
Taoiseach, your government is failing neurodiverse children and their families. You need to do more on autism services. 1 year ago, we in Labour put forward a Dáil motion on autism services for children in this House. It included a call for action to end the lengthy delays, the backlog in accessing assessments of need for children. And responding to our motion then, Minister Anne Rabbitte committed to reimbursing parents for private assessments where the state had failed to provide these after a particular time. And that announcement was significant and it was very welcome. As we all know, receiving a diagnosis is just a first step. It does not guarantee access to school places or to therapies, and it cannot fix a society which is inaccessible and even discriminatory. But without a diagnosis, children and young people with autism are often deprived of access to the supports they need to thrive. Lack of diagnosis deprives them and their families of clarity, and it can delay detection of other conditions, such as ADHD. So we welcomed that announcement from government at the time, a year ago, because the HSE's waiting lists are a huge part of the problem, and parents should not have to pay for something that the state should be providing. Indeed, in a cost of living crisis, many parents simply can't pay, with the cost of an assessment often as much as €2,000. So Taoiseach, we were led to believe then that parents would begin to be reimbursed if the waiting lists had not been resolved back last August 2023. Instead, since then, as one parent recently told me, things are not improving. It's worse they're getting, they said. Taoiseach, I know you're aware of this because in your recent Ardèche speech, you said that the backlog in assessments of need must be unblocked, and you committed to establishing and chairing a cabinet committee to break down those silos and address this. Last week, that committee on children, education and disability was announced, but Taoiseach, under your predecessor, there was already a cabinet committee on children and education, which you sat on as minister. So we want to know, does adding the word disability to the title constitute the height of the new ambition to focus on disability? If so, it's disappointing that the new energy we've heard so much about may have petered out already. If this was really a serious commitment, would you not establish a standalone Cabinet Committee on Disability? It's more than 25 years since Labour's Mervyn Taylor first initiated legislation to end discrimination on disability grounds, but the state continues to fail so many, and it's hard to see how appending an issue of disability rights onto the existing committee will make a change. We need real ambition and movement. Taoiseach, I know in June 2023 you met the amazing young advocate Cara Darmody, only 13, and who's worked so hard to raise awareness about autism and to ensure children would get timely access to assessments. But, you know, we worked with Cara and her family on the motion last year, but there's been no follow-up since. So, Taoiseach, I want to know, will you meet with Cara as soon as possible? I spoke with her father yesterday on this. And when will we see that commitment from last year made good? When will your government start repaying families who have had no option but to seek assessments elsewhere? When will you vindicate the rights of all those waiting on assessments of need? And will you meet Cara? Thank you.
I thank Deputy Bacik for raising this important issue, and at the outset let me say I'll absolutely meet again with Cara Darmody. It was a pleasure to meet with her last June. She had a number of items that she wanted to make progress on. She would literally blow you away when you meet her. As you know, she had a number of items that she wanted to make progress on. She's got some of them over the line, and I know she wants us to do a lot more too. I'm very happy to meet her, and it's her father Mark, I believe, and I'll be in touch with them to arrange that. She's written to me very recently as well, and I'm very happy to accept your invitation to meet with her today, Deputy Bacik, so I'll arrange that. Look, the Cabinet Committee on Children, Education and Disability will meet for the first time on Monday. You are right, we have decided to have children, education and disability, and the rationale behind that is because the Department of Education and indeed the Department of Children, which have responsibility for coordinating our national disability strategy and the likes, I just felt it was appropriate to use that structure to have them there. But look, this will involve me chairing a Cabinet Committee once a month on disability issues. That's a commitment that I want to give to this issue because I think there's a lot of work to be done. Minister Rabbit has done really good work in this area. In fairness, you've acknowledged some of the good engagement you've had. She will very shortly be publishing an autism strategy, which is something that has been worked on for quite a significant period of time. I will follow up directly with Minister Rabbit in relation to that issue regarding assessments and the payments of assessments, because she gave that commitment in good faith. I've absolutely no doubt about that, on foot of the Labour Party motion, and I want to help her be able to deliver on that in any way that I can. So I'll come back to you directly in relation to that. A couple of other things just I think worth mentioning as well. I do think we need to look, and two things I'll want to look at very quickly, is the issue of workforce planning. Because actually, whether you're paying for an assessment privately or whether you're waiting for an assessment publicly, it is true to say that we're not training nearly enough people when it comes to therapy posts in Ireland. And I'll task Minister O'Donovan now with working with Irish universities to see how we can ramp up the number of training places in Irish universities for speech and language therapy, occupational therapy, physiotherapy. We have started on an all-island basis. We have a number of places in therapies ring-fenced for students from here available in Northern Ireland since September, and I'd hope we can do more from next September in that space as well. Second issue I'd like to see us look at, and second issue I intend to look at, is the issue of in-school therapies. This had worked well. There were a number of pilots, for want of a better phrase, that had worked in schools where therapies were being provided in schools. One was in my own constituency and I was familiar with it. I'd like to see if there's learnings from that in terms of how that could be embedded in terms of the school and the health service coming more closely together to meet the needs of the child. So look, I'm very happy as the body of work of the Cabinet Committee gets underway to have a debate in this House on what the scope of that work might look like and how people across the House can feed into it, because I fully accept we do have a lot to do in this space. I'll meet Cara in the next couple of weeks and get her views as well.
Thank you, Taoiseach. Deputy Bacik.
Thank you for committing to meet again with Cara Darmody and her family. I know they'll be really appreciative of that, and I know that, as you've said, that meeting will take place in the next few weeks. They do have new information. They've been incredibly impactful, I must say that, and pay tribute to them, in raising awareness about lack of services, lack of autism services, lack of services for neurodiverse children. I also thank you for clarifying that the new committee will be meeting on Monday, and also for committing to follow up with Minister Anne Rabbitte on the issue of the reimbursement of payment for private assessments of need. And I'm glad also to hear Minister Rabbitte will be launching the National Autism Strategy. It's long overdue, and I wonder, can you give us a timeline on that? I think the reality is, and I think we're all aware of it in this House, that parents of children with neurodiversity, parents of children with autism, have to fight so hard for every service. And it's not just about assessments of need, although that's what the focus we're talking about today. But you've also referred to issues like in-school therapies, broader services, like school places. So many children have to travel so far out of their own communities to access these services, even where they've had the diagnosis, even where the service is provided. It's not provided anywhere near where they live. It means they cannot have the same quality of life that their siblings have. So, Taoiseach, I am appealing to you to give us a clear commitment as to what meaningful change the new Cabinet Committee will make for those children and their families. And I thank you again for agreeing to meet Cara Darmody.
Thanks very much. I look forward to meeting Cara and look forward to working with deputies who are like-minded on this issue across this House, because I think this is an area where we can make progress together, but it's an area in which we really do need to do that. I'll just check with Minister Rabbitte, but my mind tells me it's imminent, the publication of that document, but the strategy, which is much awaited and a lot of work has gone in, but I'll confirm that in writing to the Deputy. I also should have said that in reconstituting this government, I did also appoint my colleague Minister Naughton to have responsibility at the Cabinet table in relation to special needs education. And again, I thought that was another important lever that we could pull in terms of amplifying the voices of people with a disability, particularly from an education point of view. Another area that I think we can look at quite quickly is the area of career guidance for children in special schools. I was kind of astonished to realise that this doesn't happen at the moment. So I was, until very recently, the Minister for Third Level Education. We have now courses for students with intellectual disabilities in third level. But if you're in a special needs school, you don't have access to career guidance supports. Minister Foley and I just published a new strategy on career guidance, and that's one of the actions in it that I'd like to see early movement on. I do take your point, though, about the geographic inequity here and the need to map out properly the delivery of both our school services and our health services. And I'll keep in touch.
Deputy Peadar Tobin, please.
Taoiseach, last week you made a full commitment to supporting Ukraine sovereignty. The same week you made an argument for Ireland to cede sovereignty to the European Union in terms of the EU Migration Pact. Now, sovereignty is no small thing. It means that the people of this country can self-determine the laws that govern us. It means that they can influence the elected representatives and hold those elected representatives to account. But when decisions are made in Brussels or Berlin, Irish people find it very hard to influence those decisions, and we certainly can't make those hold those decision makers to account. The banking crash was a perfect example of this. The EU forced billions of euros of bailouts on the Irish citizens. It did enormous damage to this country, and we're still recovering in terms of a lost generation of investment in health, housing and infrastructure. The government also signed up to greenhouse gas emission targets. Your government are going to fall well short of those legally binding targets by 2030, and this will cost the state hundreds of millions of euros in fines. And in an answer to a Aontú parliamentary question, we learned that the EU is fining Ireland tens of millions of euros at the moment. The EU fined Ireland 2.5 billion euros in relation to wastewater issues, 1.5 million euros in environmental impact assessments, 17 million euros for the Derry Bryan wind farm, 2 million euros for the failure in money laundering directive, 2.5 million euros in failures of the Audio-Visual Media Services Directive, and €500,000 in relation to the European Electronic Communications Code. You're currently in court at the moment fighting fines in relation to what's happening in the bogs currently. So your government is looking now to sign up to further EU commitments, and you're already failing on the commitments that you've signed up to and getting fined. Now, the immigration policy of this country so far has been a disaster. You failed consistently to differentiate between those who need help and those who don't. Our Aontú parliamentary questions have shown that in the last 5 years, 85% of people who received deportation orders never had those deportation orders actioned. We found out that And I actually have that parliamentary question from you when you were Minister for Justice, so don't shake your head, please. We found out that 5,000 people came through Dublin Airport with no travel documents last year, and we also found out that the government is not asking 75% of asylum seekers how they come into the country at the moment. So now you seek to outsource this immigration policy to the EU, and at the heart of that migration pact is the idea of a mandatory solidarity pool. States must accept immigrants or financially contribute. Numbers and amounts of money are based on population and GDP, and our GDP, as you know, is already artificially elevated in this country. So we're finding it impossible currently to accommodate the migrants who are coming to this country. And given the fact that Ireland is already getting fined all over the place in terms of our commitments that we're not meeting, what I want to know from yourself is how much will it cost this state to sign up to the EU Migration Pact? What is the minimum amount and what is the maximum amount, Taoiseach?
Thank you, Deputy Taoiseach.
Thanks very much, Ken Corla. I think I can shake my head if I wish to, because I think some of what I heard there, shaking my head, was quite a challenge to just keep my head movement to that, because this idea of we're ceding sovereignty, people in Brussels making decisions. Do you not want to be a member of the European Parliament? Are you not running for election because you want to be there making? Do you know? No, Ken Corla, but you want to do there? Sorry,
Please, let Taoiseach answer.
So let's not go down the kind of Brexit Britain road here of Brussels bad, Ireland good. The reality of the situation is we are members of the European Union. After I finish taking questions here, I will head to Brussels, where I will participate in a decision-making process with other European heads of government. Members of the European Parliament, of which you aspire to be one, will vote democratically on behalf of the people of Europe. Ireland appoints a commissioner to the European Commission. So it's not about outsourcing. This country took a proud decision, I'm not sure what your position on it was, to join the European Union. So that's the first point. The second point is, yes, when you join up to rules and laws, you have to abide by them. And we have court systems in place in relation to that, and we have sanctions if you don't, and that puts, of course, member states, including Ireland, under pressure from time to time. But they're rules and laws we signed up to. Nobody imposed them. Nobody said, you must do this. We signed up. We opted in. We chose to do that. So that's very much part of how a rules-based system works. I can't hear you. And then thirdly, when it comes to migration, I just think it is fanciful in the extreme, that this small little island, with thankfully an open border, which we all worked very hard to protect during the Brexit process, can just go it alone when it comes to global and EU migration. The fact that we would continue with a system where we cannot effectively return anybody in many ways in terms of secondary movements, where, as you point out, the deportation system can be challenging at times, to actually sign up to a significant overhaul of the rules that would actually result in a firmer migration system, a fair one but a firmer one, and that Ireland will disproportionately benefit because so many people who come to Ireland seeking refuge come here from what we call secondary movements. So there's absolutely no doubt in my engagements in Europe in the last week, and I doubt there'll be any doubt after my engagements this week, that Ireland stands to be one of the big beneficiaries of the EU Migration Pact, and we'll have plenty of time in this House to debate and discuss that. But let me be clear also in relation to our migration system, and it's not possible, I think to put the costings on these things, because these are dynamic effects. Ireland will benefit in some ways, not in the other, but Ireland will overall be the better. And we'll have an opportunity to tease through in painstaking detail the EU Migration Pact at both the Justice Committee, the floor of Dáil Éireann, the floor of Shannon Éireann, and then far from ceding sovereignty, the people's representatives, you, me and everybody else in this House, will vote taw or kneel in relation to whether we want to go it alone or whether we want to work with our European partners in terms of accepting the fact that migration is a massive crisis of our time, a humanitarian crisis and an economic and social challenge, and that we need to work together on this.
Thank you, Taoiseach. Deputy Tobin.
People with your political background probably said in 1921 that it was fanciful for a small country like ourselves to go it alone and be sovereign back then. But this is the key issue here, Taoiseach, as well. So the point I would say is, Taoiseach, I asked you a question of how much it's going to cost for this state in terms of signing in to the EU Migration Pact. And you have here, in front of the Dáil, stated, you don't know. Now that is an absolute disgraceful answer for a government who's already made a political commitment to sign in to that pact. It is an incredible situation that this is potentially your first blank cheque Minister, in terms of the cost to this country. And given the fact that we're already paying fines to beat the band as a country for failed commitments that your government can't actually hold up to, it means that we are, the citizen, is going to have to pay for that in the future. Your government is already incinerating hundreds of millions of euros in terms of waste. 2.25 billion euros in the National Children's Hospital, 300 million euros on Metro North, and a shovel is not even put into the ground. You spent 22 million euros on ventilators that don't work, and you're spending 50 grand a year on a warehouse to hold them at the moment. You have a situation in this country where we have over 100 electric buses in this state.
Time is up.
Who haven't worked a day because somebody forgot to put the planning application in for those electric buses. And now as you as a government are saying to the people of Ireland that you don't know how much it's going to cost. And I think that's an absolute disgrace. I'll ask you again, how much will it cost the citizens to pay for the EU Migration Pact in the future?
Taoiseach, please.
So in the minute available to me, it's not possible to deal with the electric buses, the Metro, the National Children's Hospital, and waste and a range of other issues that Deputy Tobin went on an interesting journey around there. But it is absolutely beneath you to slur my political tradition and political party in this House. Because let's look at the party that you spent most of your time in, and let's look at your stance. If it was up to you, we wouldn't. If it was up to you. No, I was
You're a bit of a tourist.
I was 15.
You were in Sinn Féin?
I was 15. If it was up to you, we wouldn't be in the European Union. If it's up to you, we wouldn't be in it. Because you've... Pardon?
This is Deputy Tobin.
Sorry, it's just Deputy McDonald is muttering something at me and I can't hear. But it's a statement of fact that Sinn Féin have opposed every European referendum since we joined the European Union, including the one to join the European Union. That's the truth. I don't know. Old fogey, young fogey, yes.
Sorry, I have a question.
Please.
Sorry.
No, look, please.
Sorry, it suits Fine Gael and Sinn Féin to make this about both those political parties. So are other political parties here? This is one of the few times I get a chance to ask a question, an important
Please
question.
resume your seat. We'll ask Taoiseach to continue.
Sorry, I was distracted by the personal slurs of Deputy McDonald towards my character rather than engaging on political issues. Deputy Tobin, we are proudly seeking to join the EU Migration Pact. We believe it is good for our country. We believe it's good for Europe. We're looking forward to teasing through and debating the detail in this House and in the Seanad and at the Justice Committee, and we'll continue to do that.
Now we go to Deputy Michael Collins on behalf of the Rural Independent Group.
Thank you, Count Corla. Taoiseach, small businesses are going through the most horrendous times, in particular the last few months, the length and breadth of this country. Cafes, restaurants, pubs and family hotels are closing at an alarming rate, hundreds I may say, already this year. Businesses the length and breadth of the island are pleading for help in an effective way, but to date it has gone unheeded by government. Last week you said that you intend to help small business by providing grants, advice and mentoring. Grants may help, but for these businesses, some in operation for decades, advice and mentoring is an insult to their intelligence. Last week, in the front page of West Cork Southern Star, a national campaign to reduce the VAT rate was launched by businesses throughout West Cork. This campaign, called VAT 9 Now, is run by Jamie Budd of Bud's Restaurant Ballydehob in West Cork, Peter Shannon of the Fish Basket Longstrand, Gavin Moore of Monks Lane Timoleague, Aisling O'Leary and Forbes Kelly of Revell Clonakilty, and Vic Sprake and Deborah Nicueve of Camas Farm outside Clonakilty. This campaign is gaining support from hospitality businesses all over the country. Taoiseach, VAT returned to 13.5% for the hospitality and tourism industry from 9% in September 2023, even though I and others pleaded to your government at that time and before that it would have devastating consequences for important businesses in every town and village in Ireland. This destructive increase with spiralling energy costs combined with food and minimum wage increase are bringing already tight margins for these businesses to the point of being unviable. Businesses are saying for months now that the government do not realise with the VAT increase of nearly double plus all other costs associated in running a business, energy costs which no one has control of, and the minimum wage which no one expects to decrease, but the government have control of the VAT rate, and to immediately drop it back to 9% as the call, because if you don't, more and more of these businesses are going to go under throughout the country. One of these business people in this group that I mentioned a while ago said it is a hugely testing time for the sector. Our margins are at breaking point. It is so disheartening because we love what we do, but we can't be busy fools. We worked long hours through Easter, and having paid everything out, there is little little left. These businesses, Taoiseach, pay rent, rates, electricity bills, water bills, wastewater bills, waste bills, wages, suppliers, maintenance, insurance bills, and most damaging, the VAT bill. Taoiseach, these cafe, restaurant and pub and family hotel owners are asking the question is how many of these businesses have to close before Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil and the Greens government will wake up and understand the crisis they are in. Surely you at the top are not so disconnected that you have no idea what is going on in the ground. Are your backbenchers, TDs and senators telling you anything? Taoiseach, a straight-up question. On behalf of this VAT 9 action group in West Cork, which has gone national, will you support the VAT rate to return to 9% from 13.5% this week, thus giving these businesses a small boost before the summer season, a boost that may see them survive? Anything else coming from you today will be devastating for these businesses.
On the station, please.
Thanks very much. Thanks to Deputy Collins for raising the important matter in relation to small businesses, and particularly referencing a number in what we call the hospitality sector, I guess, cafes, restaurants, pubs and others that I fully accept have been struggling to absorb significant costs and have been operating in an environment of high inflation, of rising costs and a number of, I suppose, charges that have come at them all at once. And when I talk to many of them across the country, it's not that they believe any of the initiatives are bad. In fact, they want to do well by their workers, by their employees. It helps them retain staff. It's good to, the key to a good business is looking after your workforce. But at the same time, they're trying to make ends meet, and I do acknowledge that, and I do want to work with them and with like-minded deputies in this House to see how we can do that. Our newly appointed Minister for Enterprise, Trade and Employment, Peadar Burke, is looking at a whole range of ways in which we can try and support businesses, small businesses in particular, but also, most importantly, I think, in terms of how we can try and provide them with certainty as to what the next number of years look like, because I certainly have heard that very clearly, as have my colleagues. They want to know, are we going to get hit with more costs? So I think trying to provide them with certainty as to what the next few years look like is quite important. I would say to you, Deputy Collins, we have already a scheme in place, €250 million. You'll know it, the cost of business scheme, and that €250 million is currently being given out. Today, we believe 34,000 businesses will have now applied, but there's about 140,000, little more, businesses in Ireland that could benefit from this. So I'd encourage every member of this House to please get the message out in your constituency. To any business, you can apply for this grant. It's easy to apply for, low on bureaucracy, very little paperwork, and let's get money immediately into the bank accounts of small businesses across Ireland. We've also kept in place the VAT cuts in relation to gas and electricity, and indeed increased the VAT threshold level, which has again helped many small businesses. And Minister Burke is also working on an energy efficiency grant that we think will significantly help businesses with the cost of energy as well. You did specifically, Deputy Collins, raise the issue of the VAT rate, and it is truthful of me to say, and it is a factual position, that issues around VAT and tax rates in general are matters that are considered in the budget. They remain issues that we will continue to consider, and government will make decisions in relation to all tax and spending matters in the budget. But we will not wait till the budget to act to help small business. So to anyone watching this today, watching into these proceedings, particularly a small business owner, there are over 100,000 businesses eligible today for financial support from the government. Please apply, let us get that money in your bank account, and please know over the next couple of weeks we'll be working to put more measures in place, but also crucially working to provide policy certainty, as to what the next few years look like in terms of the cost of doing business in Ireland.
Thank you for your reply. And you say you fully accept it, but the unfortunate situation is the VAT. And the VAT is the problem here. And you don't seem to understand that since the VAT has gone up, restaurants and cafes all over the country are shutting down. Bang, bang, door after door after door. You do not grasp the crisis here. On your election as Taoiseach last week, I listened carefully to see, were you going to be different? Or were you just going to be something of what we've had before? Lowering the VAT rate is where you could have shone out, and you didn't. Other than promises, we got nothing, meaning more of the same. How many cosy cafes, neighbourhood restaurants, pubs will close before the penny drops? And how will our towns and villages look with more shuttered premises? You have to lower the VAT rate now and not kick the can down the road to October. This will not do, Minister, or Taoiseach. This new group will protest in relation to the VAT, and it's not down, as I promised you, Taoiseach, this is not just a West Cork protest, it is a national protest. So again, I ask you, Taoiseach, are you going to lower the VAT rate from 13.5% to 9% today? Will you announce that today? And if not, your government will face wipeout in the upcoming elections. I promise you that, because the people are angry. They're shutting their doors. They're fighting to create employment. They're losing their jobs. They're losing their income. And these employees are losing their jobs. And they're furious out there all over throughout the country, wherever I go.
So the people will decide the outcome of the elections, not your utterances in the Dáil, Deputy Collins, and I'd never be so arrogant as to tell the people what they're going to do in an election. Maybe you shouldn't either. I think it's not helpful to come at this from the suggestion that there's one way of helping business, and if you don't do this way, you don't care at all. I mean, that's overly simplistic, and to be quite frank, if anybody understands the importance of balancing the books, doing a budget, living within your budget, it's businesses. The government has to work like that as well. The government produces a budget in this House each year. The budget is then voted upon by members of this House, and then the country lives within its budget. We've done that. It's provided economic certainty to business. It's provided a situation where we have full employment. It's provided a situation where we've been able to set surpluses aside. And it's provided a situation where we can provide €250 million of assistance to small businesses in Ireland today. And Ceann Comhairle, it's worth saying in this House today, 140,000 are eligible. Only 34,000 or thereabouts have applied so far. We need everybody who's eligible to get this money in their bank account. The government is looking to give you financial assistance. And the government is saying we won't stop there. We're going to do more around energy efficiency. We've increased the VAT threshold. We've left the gas and electricity VAT cuts in place for the time being. And we're looking at how we can provide certainty. Because the big thing I hear from small businesses is wanting to know what next in terms of costs. Is there more coming at me? And I want to assure them that this government will only pursue policies now in the weeks and months ahead that will support small businesses and their viability.
Thank you, Taoiseach. That concludes Leaders' questions and allows us to move to questions on policy or legislation. A maximum of 1 minute per question. Deputy Mary Lou McDonald, please.
Thank you, Ceann Comhairle, and I'm happy just to confirm for the Taoiseach that the health policy is very much on our website. So, no, it didn't. It was never... And really, I mean, if this is what we're reduced to the Taoiseach scouring people's websites and playing to the gallery, the television audience at home, it's rather... So, I raised with you yesterday the scandalous situation of scoliosis and kids with scoliosis and spina bifida waiting for their operations. You made some kind of a promise, and I want to get clarity on it. Parents are watching this very carefully. They're not interested in smart aleck responses from anybody. So can I ask you what resources you're putting in place to meet the 4-month target that you've committed to again? Can you give me a date for the restart of the scheme for children to travel abroad for surgeries faster? And can you also clarify for me when you will meet the parents' demand for a second opinion for their children independent of CHR?
Taoiseach, please.
Well, thanks very much, and I appreciate your pledge not to engage in smart alecky comments. In relation to this important issue, I am very happy to meet the families, Deputy McDonald, and that's the least I can do. I will arrange to do that. I can't give you a date right now, but I will do it in the next couple of weeks. I'm very happy to do that, and in fact I think I would benefit from doing that, so I'm very happy to do that. In relation to the treatment abroad scheme, the Minister for Health advised me yesterday that Mr Moore, who I believe is the new clinical lead in this area, is working on a number of options in relation to treatment abroad. I'm not going to mislead parents today. I don't know the answer in terms of that time frame, but I will find it for you and I will respond to you in writing in relation to it. There has been very significant additional resources gone in already, as you know, to the scoliosis and spina bifida waiting list action plans. I believe 19 million in current capital funding. The Minister for Health also briefed me yesterday that Mr Moore has brought forward to him in the last few weeks proposals for additional extra staff and additional extra, I think, consultants as well, my note tells me. But allow me write to the Deputy on both of those.
Bacik.
I want to raise with you an issue that I've been raising for some time with your predecessor, indeed with the Taoiseach, and that is justice for survivors of thalidomide here in Ireland. And I know you're well aware of this scandal. And indeed, I've worked closely for some time now with the Irish Thalidomide Association and with Finola Cassidy in particular on the need for a state apology and for appropriate supports and resolution for survivors. It's been, I think, now 62 years since the drug was withdrawn from the market, yet survivors and surviving parents are still waiting for justice. And the sad reality is that as time passes, more and more people in the community are passing away without seeing justice. Just yesterday we got news, sadly, that Elizabeth Sweeney had died without recognition or validation for herself or her daughter Sandra. And I just want to offer my sympathies to her family. The state has not formally acknowledged that what happened was not their fault, the fault of the mothers and the parents. And Taoiseach, I'm asking you today, will you make a commitment to engage with the Irish Thalidomide Association to secure a resolution of this issue for the survivors and their families? Thank you.
I certainly will. I've already had contact with Finola Cassidy, I believe, from the group, who is a very regular campaigner here in Leinster House and known to all of us, and I'm very happy to have that engagement. I know that there has been a lot of engagement prior to my appointment with, as you rightly say, both my predecessors, both Leo Varadkar and the Taoiseach. I'm very happy, and I've asked to be briefed by my officials in terms of where that's at, and may I join with you in extending my sympathy to the family of Elizabeth Sweeney on her passing.
Holly Kearns.
Taoiseach, we're on course to spectacularly miss our climate targets. The latest person to sound the alarm about this impending failure is Mary Robinson. She can't understand why funding that is available now to help reduce our emissions and meet our targets isn't being used. Neither can I. We have so much work to do and so little time to do it. Inaction or insufficient action is not a credible strategy. Taoiseach, the government is in the process of creating a climate and nature fund. Billions will be poured into it, but the money will not be drawn down until after 2026. 2026. There are so many industries and communities, particularly in rural Ireland and coastal communities, that will be impacted. We need to provide resources now to help them make a transition that is coming. Will you reconsider the start date for that fund and invest now to protect the future?
Thank you, Deputy Kearns. Taoiseach.
Thanks to Deputy Kearns for raising this issue, and I agree that climate change is the most pressing challenge for society. The planet is on fire. It does require major action, and I do think at a European level, and I'll make this point in Brussels today, at a European level, I think we need to be more ambitious in terms of the EU strategic agenda, in terms of its commentary in relation to action on climate. We have some encouraging signs, and we won't waste the Dáil's time in listing them all because we know them, but the EU emissions trading scheme for Ireland does show that we have seen, when it comes to power generation and industrial emissions, a significant decrease by 17% in 2023, which is more than 2.4 million tonnes. Emissions decreased by almost 24% from the electricity generation sector. But I do accept there's a lot more to do. I do think the decision to establish that fund will be seen in time as a really important step. The fund is meant to be spent down after 2026, and that is for I think logical reasons, but it's not to suggest that the government won't act or spend more between now and 2026. But let me reflect.
Thank you, Deputy Gino Kenny.
Joseph Strzok was a Croatian man, a carpenter that came to Ireland for a better life. And 2 weeks ago he was murdered. And in the eyes of his attackers, they said that he was not speaking English and he was not welcome in Ireland. Absolutely grotesque in relation to migrants, people coming into this country. And Taoiseach, you will agree with me that hateful and xenophobic language is trickling down to individuals that will weaponise this horrible, toxic language and will use grotesque violence. And I hate to say this, some of that xenophobic rhetoric is actually being used here, in this house, unfortunately. And I would ask people that use this language to really think again in terms of this horrible stuff that's going on in our country at this moment. Do you agree, Taoiseach, that this rhetoric is trickling down not only to immigrants that are coming into this country, but everybody in this country, and it's a threat to everybody?
Thank you. Taoiseach.
Thanks very much, Ken Corlin, and thanks to Deputy Kenny for raising the matter. And let me answer it in two parts. Firstly, in relation to Joseph, to extend my sympathy, and I know that of everybody in this House, to his family and friends on his horrific death. I did speak briefly to the Garda Commissioner in relation to this matter. I'm conscious there is an ongoing active Garda investigation, and I don't wish to say anything to cut across that. And I do also believe that the Gardaí have been linking in with the appropriate embassy as well in terms of ensuring an information flow and that family are kept up to date. So not being able to comment on a specific case, let me say more broadly, I do very much welcome the comments that you've made in this House today about the importance of language and not sowing division. This is a country that is the better for migration. Yes, we have challenges, and yes, government and governments across the world need to do better in terms of how our systems operate and in terms of our accommodation responses. But let's be very clear. Look around an Irish hospital today, look around an Irish restaurant today, look around a childcare setting today, look around anywhere you are today, and you will see in real time the benefits of immigration in this country.
Deputy Dennis Naughton.
Approximately 15,000 people with Parkinson's in Ireland are supported by Parkinson's Ireland, who is the organisation that receives €70,000 per annum in state funding, providing vital exercise supports nationwide to patients, which is as vital as medication in terms of their care, among many of the other supports that they provide. Now, this service is under threat. They've applied through the HSE for funding of €120,000 under the Section 39 funding. Taoiseach, that's 0.0005% of the overall health budget. And can you ensure that that small amount of money is made available to Parkinson's Ireland to provide vital services that are currently under threat?
Thank you, Taoiseach.
It's actually, Deputy Naughton, I only read a letter that Parkinson's Ireland have written to me. I only read it this morning before coming down here, so it's fresh in my mind. I will certainly speak to the HSE and the Minister for Health in relation to this. I'm aware from my time in the Department of Health of the incredible work that Parkinson's Ireland do. I'm aware from my constituents with Parkinson's of the excellent work they do. So I won't speak for the Minister for Health, but I will certainly speak to him on the matter.
Deputy McGrath.
Taoiseach, last February, public representatives were informed in Clonmel, the Mayor of Clonmel and others, and indeed Councillor Niall Dennehy, that 62 modular homes were being considered for the Haber roadside. We didn't hear a dicky about since until I've been trying under PQs and freedom of information to get information. Couldn't get it. Last Friday I got a FOI back and a PQ, but Friday evening we got an email at 6:30 from the Director of Services that 82 modular homes were being placed in Haber Road. This, sticks in people's craws because a lot of investigative work has been carried out with Toronto and topography and drainage, everything else, and we have 400 people presented homeless in Tipperary last year himself. Why can't we make these efforts to house our own people? And we're told these could cost, according to RTE's recent programme, up to 33 million. They're costing 407,000 each. This is outrageous money. We wanted 2.5 million. We want 2.5 million to keep the N24 project alive from Care to Waterford. We met the Parkinson's Society this morning. We met the cardiovascular over and disability groups.
Thank you,
all looking for small monies. And with this money to spend on modular homes for Ukrainian refugees, where's it going to stop? And the millions for the pets. Where's it going to stop?
Deputy, the time's up. Thank you. Taoiseach.
That language just worries me in relation to pitting one group of people against another in society. We have a lot of challenges.
Please.
Yeah, no, your language worries me, not the issues. The issues we'll deal with.
Please, Deputy.
The issues we'll deal with as a government and we'll deal with collectively in the Oireachtas, but the language of division, to Deputy Kenny's point, is not healthy debate, but that's my opinion. In relation to Ukrainian accommodation, Ciarán, it might be useful for the House to know this. Every day in Ireland, about 15 Ukrainian people come to Ireland seeking accommodation. Every day in Ireland, about 45 Ukrainian people leave state accommodation. There are around 175 fewer Ukrainian people each week in state accommodation. So far from giving the narrative that the situation is worsening in relation to Ukrainian people in accommodation, it's actually very significantly improving. In relation to your very specific constituency issues, I'll ask the line ministers to reply.
Thank you, Taoiseach. The independent group, who's Deputy Catherine Connolly.
Taoiseach, for your gear tá orm ospidil an clachan a ordú a ríis. Tá sé dúnta, tá sé fós dúnta in anon an éileh atá ar na services sa ospidil sin, agus in anon go bhfuil brú damanta ar an ospidil in Galia. Taoiseach, once again I'm raising the hospital in Clifton. It remains closed, despite the best efforts of the Minister Butler, of the TDs, the senators on the ground. The GPs and the people all want Clifton Hospital to be open. We've been given solemn promises that it will remain open, but it remains closed. 12 respite beds. In Galway, there are 20-something patients as we speak who are ready to be discharged, have no place to go. There are empty beds in Carrow, there are empty beds in Merlin Park, all of the time while the hospital in Galway City is going under with pressure. There's something seriously amiss with the management and the health executive that's allowing this situation to continue.
Deputy Deputy Connolly for raising the issue in relation to the hospital in Clifton, and I can sense your frustration in regards to this. I'll speak to both Minister Donnelly, Minister Butler, the HSE, and see if I can assist in improving the situation.
Jackie Cahill.
I want to raise the issue of VAT rebate for farmers. Around this time last year, Revenue started to change their interpretation of what was VAT rebatable for farmers. At this stage, a huge amount of items that were previously refundable for VAT have now been taken off the list. This morning I got 3 calls from farmers who have been rejected their application for refunds. The Revenue have in the last 12 months have changed the interpretation that was there for the previous 50 years. This was done without any consultation or any negotiations with anyone, with the Department of Finance, etc. I want the government to direct Revenue to revert to the previous interpretation that was there for VAT refunds and go back to the previous system that was there for the previous 50 years and refund these infrastructural items that farmers badly need VAT back on to help them invest in their farms and meet the challenges of climate change and emissions.
I want to thank Deputy Cahill for raising this matter. I note his long area of leadership in this, both in the Oireachtas Agriculture Committee and indeed in life before politics. I'll ask Minister McGrath to engage with the Revenue Commissioners on that matter and to come back to you directly. I'll also meet the IFA later this week to discuss a number of the challenges that are facing farmers at the moment in Ireland.
Minister Gorman's decision to remove Drogheda's only hotel of scale from public use continues to cause anger and frustration locally in Drogheda. This decision, without consultation with tourism and business interests, is absolutely causing havoc with people in Drogheda in terms of how they think the government is viewing them. And in particular, I think I've been asked to invite you, Taoiseach, to visit our town at the first opportunity to meet with the business and the tourist interests and the ordinary people to make sure that we put in place, the decision has been made, but we need a significant focused support package to mitigate the impact on tourism. And I think it will be hugely important. You, who have done a lot of work in Drogheda with the Lourdes Hospital, with the new apprenticeship centre, with the Drogheda Institute for Further Education, and your colleague there beside you as well, you know Drogheda very well. We need you to visit, we need that action, and we need it now.
Well, thanks very much, and thanks to Deputy O'Dowd for raising this matter and for keeping in very regular contact with me in relation to it. I know the pressure this has caused in the local community in terms of the loss of a hotel. We do need to move away from a reliance on hotel accommodation, and that's what the new accommodation strategy that Minister O'Gorman has brought forward is. I certainly believe we also need to support towns like Drogheda in terms of the impact on tourism. We've already, as you say, worked together to take a number of steps to support Drogheda, and I'd very much be happy to accept your invitation to visit Drogheda and meet with local businesses and residents on this matter.
Deputy Pauline Tully.
Taoiseach, I want to raise the issue of the current situation with the Irish Wheelchair Association service in Cavan. As of this week, their services have been reduced to an outreach-only model, similar to what was offered during COVID. And this decision was made in conjunction with the HSE. It's based on the lack of staff, and the service users are devastated because there's already a severely reduced service as it was, but now it's actually zero. The staff are fantastic, but it's impossible to recruit and retain staff, and it's mainly due to the pay parity situation, which still hasn't been addressed since last October. One 25-year-old, Caitlin is her service user's name. She has epilepsy and cerebral palsy, among other conditions. She'd been promised 26 hours. She was getting 3 days for a number of hours, which was great. She loved it. Now it's zero, and Zoom is no good to her because she's non-verbal. So I'm just wondering, Taoiseach, can something be done to address this situation as quickly as possible?
Thank you, Deputy Taoiseach.
Thanks to Deputy Tully for bringing this matter to my attention in relation to the Irish Wheelchair Association, Cavan, and the impact, as you've outlined very clearly, on service users. So I'll ask the Minister for Health to revert to you directly on this.
Thank you, Deputy Andreas Moynihan.
Agus Councórla agus Taoiseach Táimid Fistrú faoin crotangis bóthracha áitiúla gúnta Corcaigh. Taoiseach, a massive issue that locals are raising with me constantly is the poor condition of the local road network. Numerous potholes and council staff running back and forth from road to road filling holes. And it's really difficult for locals who have been paying road tax and a road that isn't fit for driving. Now, Cork County Council does get substantial road maintenance funding, and Cork has the largest road network with over 12,000 kilometres. And what that means is that the funding means 2% of roads would be resurfaced each year. That means a road once in the 50 years can expect to be resurfaced. And the funds are for very specific road projects, and there's very little discretion available to the local authority in that. So can there be more flexibility and prioritisation for road funding, for the maintenance, for councils?
Yeah, thanks very much, Deputy Moynihan. Actually, myself, the Taoiseach and the Minister for Transport discussed the issue of road maintenance this week, because we're very conscious of the fact that it's a very real issue in a lot of communities, and we're very conscious that it's an issue that's been worsened by the level of rain and the weather and the impact that that's had on road surfaces over the last while. So I know the three of us remain committed to seeing if there's more that we can do in this space in the weeks ahead, and we'll keep in touch with you on it.
Bernard Durkin.
Thank you, Cancorla. I raise again the issue of the use of parental alienation in family law in this country, which continues apace to exclude children from the family home and parents from the family home with clear knowledge of winning the case by using a legal formula that is not the creation of this House. It's the creation of case law. And parents are, in many cases, mostly the mothers, are deprived from seeing or speaking with their children other than by telephone. This is an appalling situation which has no regard either for the welfare of the children, in respect of which we passed a referendum in this country on the rights of the child. So Minister is about to change the rules there. There need to be strong rules, there need to be firm rules, and they need to stamp out this practice, and I would ask that it be done soon.
Thanks, Corla. I want to thank Deputy Durkin for raising this issue and acknowledge that this is an issue he's been raising and championing for quite a very significant period of time, and indeed at every opportunity. I do note, as a result of his advocacy and engagement, that the Minister for Justice has been working on a significant project in relation to this with her officials, and as the Deputy alludes to, there is due to be what I believe is important developments in this space shortly, and I'll ask Minister McEntee to provide you with a written update.
Deputy Clare Curran.
Taoiseach, you will be well aware of the disaster area that is Lough Functionagh in my constituency. The situation is worsening literally hour by hour, and water is continuing to rise. And as I stand here today, a fifth home now looks like it will be evacuated, somebody's home. Water is now flowing towards Curraboy village. An overflow pipe, as you know, as a temporary and an emergency measure, is 60% complete and installed. I know, having met with Minister O'Donnell, the NPWS, the OPW, Oireachtas colleagues, councillors last Friday, and from speaking to him again yesterday, advice is now awaited from the Attorney-General. We really need this advice, we need it now. Taoiseach, I cannot find the words to express what it is to see people in their 80s and 90s watching their entire lives destroyed before their eyes. Homes have been abandoned, livelihoods have been absolutely destroyed, and this community are on their knees. Only that they are so strong and decent and good people, they are holding on, but they are hoping for you to act. So I want to ask you, when will the Attorney-General give advice, and when will these families know that they can go to bed at night without having to listen to pumps running?
Yeah, I want to thank Deputy Curran for raising this issue and acknowledge her work on it. I'm pleased that Minister O'Donnell was able to visit and meet with you in the last couple of days. I myself, not at Lough Functionagh, but I myself did meet some local residents informally, and I do intend to visit and meet with you and your colleagues there. As you say, Minister O'Donnell did ask for the Attorney-General to provide advice in relation to this, because this is one of these issues that isn't of money, it isn't of lack of will. We need to find a way forward so that we can save these homes and help these people. And I've asked that the Attorney-General prioritise that advice. So as soon as we have that, I'll be back to engage with you further on it.
Deputy Marco Kahasik.
Taoiseach, I wish you the very best in your new role, but I want to remind you that you have unfinished business with Waterford from your previous role in further and higher education. I want to prove the doubters wrong and to show that SETU can indeed be a university of scale and substance to serve the people of the South East. But to see that, we need to see the money, Taoiseach. We have to see the funding for the engineering building finally make it through that PPP process. We need capital funding to develop the Waterford Crystal site. We need to expedite purpose-built student accommodation. We need an early and, I would say, positive decision regarding SETU's bid to host new courses in veterinary and pharma. And we need to see movement on the deeper structural issues like the funding of professorial grades at our technological universities to allow them to function properly as centres of research. Taoiseach, are these issues going to remain on your agenda now that you've swapped to the Taoiseach's office?
Taoiseach?
Yeah, very, very much so, because I think we've soldiered too long together on this, Deputy O'Causey, for it to be anything else. I'm really proud that we've managed to deliver a university for the South East, but I'm also very aware that its success or otherwise will absolutely depend on our continued level of support and investment as it embeds and grows. Really proud of the progress that it's made so far, but each of the issues that you've outlined, the PPP, student accommodation, veterinary, pharma, professorships, are absolutely issues I'll take an active interest in. I've already spoken with the new Minister for Further and Higher Education in relation to it.
Deputy Morris Quinlivan.
Taoiseach, I just want to raise the issue of University Hospital Limerick with you. Taoiseach, you were the Health Minister for 4 years. There is 105 people on trolleys as we sit here ourselves today. There's 7,308 people already this year are on trolleys in University Hospital Limerick, and that is going to be exceeding the record number we had of 21,409 people last year. So, Taoiseach, what I want to know is, when we talk about people on trolleys, we sometimes forget these are people we know. These are actually figures. We can forget they're actually people. They're neighbours of ours, they're friends of ours, and in many cases they're family members of ours. So, Taoiseach, I want to know, what are you actually going to do? Is it going to be a priority for you to sort out University Hospital Limerick, or are we going to see a worse year this year again? Because from 4 years as Minister, you don't leave me with much confidence that you will take this as a priority and treat it as the issue and with the urgency that it needs, because it's not fair. 106 people on average the last 3 days in University Hospital Limerick, simply not good enough.
Thank you. Taoiseach.
Thanks, Deputy Quinlivan. Thanks for raising the issue, and let me try and prove you wrong, because I am determined to work with you and work with others in the Limerick region to, for once and for all, try and make progress in relation to University Hospital Limerick. I accept there's more that needs to be done in relation to investment, but I also believe that it is very concerning that despite the level of investment the hospital has received relative to other hospitals in recent time, that it has failed to improve its performance. I mean, I take what you say about statistics, because you're right, there are people behind these statistics, but just let me give you one. There has been a 42% increase in staffing in that hospital. I mean, these are not small increases. In fact, they're very much larger than other hospitals, as they should be, because we're playing catch up in the Midwest. But it is concerning, the lack of operational grip there. Now, I do understand that the Minister, and you probably met, I know he was in Limerick recently, that there's been a new Regional Executive Officer, Sandra Broderick, has been appointed, and I look forward to having an early meeting with her, and I'll keep in touch with you.
Thank you, Deputy Patricia Ryan.
Taoiseach, I want to raise the issue of homelessness in Kildare. 2 weeks ago I had 5 people who had to spend the night in Newbridge Garda Station because they had no emergency accommodation to go to. Now, I do like to thank the Gardaí for their help. The very same week we had Storm Kathleen, and while we were told winter beds are available until the end of April, obviously this wasn't the case. When I made inquiries as to why there was no availability, I was told people from Meath and Dublin were being accommodated in County Kildare. Now, I don't care what county or what country people come from, I welcome all, and I want to put that on the record. I also want to know why there is no supply. Most of these people are very vulnerable, and telling somebody at 5 p.m. from the local authorities to ring an emergency line is not good enough. It's an absolute cop-out, because the local authorities know full well there is no emergency accommodation. So, Taoiseach, I want to know how we're going to resolve this situation. And also, I don't want you to come back and say to me about HAP accommodation, because that's a whole other story at the minute. It's unfit for purpose in most areas where landlords are getting a huge amount at people's expense.
Taoiseach.
Thank you.
Mr. Ryan, I'm not familiar with that situation where 2 people found themselves sleeping in a Garda station, but thank you for bringing it to my attention. I'll ask both Kildare County Council, the local Garda station involved, and the Minister for Housing for a report, and I'll write to you directly on the matter.
Verona Murphy.
Taoiseach, it's our first interaction. Well, no, actually, it's our second, but anyway, best of luck in the job. I just want to say that Wexford has a deficit in roads funding of €66 million. I brought a topical to the floor a month ago. It was taken by a junior minister who promised that there would be engagement from the minister, the line minister. I've heard nothing. We have a deplorable situation. The roads are in an awful state. Many of our roads actually don't have foundations in the Rosslare and New Ross district. The problem is, I'm about to address a road safety conference this afternoon for professional drivers. And the first thing that they will say is that our roads infrastructure is fundamental to how we stop people dying on our roads. Everything from bends being removed to road surfaces, to water logging on roads, ditches being removed, all of those things. Like, we talk constantly about saving people's lives, but we do not have the roads infrastructure or the funding to put same in place. Taoiseach, Adair, the Ryder Cup has been given 58 million. 17,000 extra cars will go through a dare. Wexford will have 500,000 people attend the FLA this year. I'd ask you to consider that and provide the deficit in funding, please. Thank you.
Look, there's probably more, but there's definitely three aspects to road safety. There's the killer behaviours, which we really need to get on top of. People drink driving, drug driving, speed. There's enforcement, but there is also, and I agree with you, there is the issue of the quality and the safety of our roads, and there is a correlation indeed in terms of the number of accidents that do take place at accident black spots and the likes. I will raise specifically the issue of the Wexford roads and roads funding levels with Minister Ryan, and I'll come back to you in writing on the issue.
Thank you very much, Deputy Marion Harkin.
Thank you, Cancórla. Taoiseach, the groundbreaking EU Pact on Asylum and Migration, 5 new directives, 3 already agreed, and a set of recommendations is going straight to the Justice Committee without any opportunity to discuss its profound implications in this House. Now, Taoiseach, I canvassed twice for the Lisbon Treaty, which enshrines our opt-out on justice and home affairs, which was obviously in the Treaty of Amsterdam, along with our colleagues from Denmark, who I might add have chosen not to opt into this legislation. But when I did that canvassing, I honestly believed that if we were to opt in to any of the measures in justice and home affairs, there would be a full and detailed examination of the possible consequences of either a full or partial opt-in or not opting in this House. Yet we're not getting that. We're getting platitudes. What we need is a detailed analysis as to the specific benefits or drawbacks from opting in or out. It's really important we get this right from a societal as well as a legislative basis. Taoiseach, it's up to you to ensure we do.
You know, and I certainly want to assure the House, Cancórla and Deputy Harkin, that we will get that time. So just to be very clear, it's been referred to the Justice Committee for their scrutiny. It will then come back to this House for a full debate in which the Government wishes it to be given plenty of time and a vote by every member of Dáil Éireann. It will then go to the other House for a full debate and a vote by every member, because whilst I'm very much in favour of the EU Migration Pact, I don't make a secret of that, the Government intends to opt in. It absolutely deserves and requires and needs proper scrutiny in both Houses. So the Justice Committee is step one, but there will be a full debate and vote here in this House.
Deputy Violet Ann Wynne.
Taoiseach, I welcome the recent unannounced visit of Minister Donnelly to UHL. I had requested unannounced visits from government, so I was really happy to see that take place. At that visit, the Minister made a few points, one being that they have managed to reduce the number of patients on trolleys nationally by 17%, but not in UHL. Instead, it's increased by 50%. He also pointed to the number of reforms that have been successfully implemented in other hospitals that have not transpired in UHL. Do you accept that these failures point to the need for an additional emergency department for the only region where one emergency department caters, albeit very poorly, for a massive population of over 450,000? And surely, I suppose the government and Sinn Féin both have stated that they need clinical advice on the requirement for the reinstatement of emergency departments. But surely you can't expect the public to believe that currently the clinical advice is to leave that number of a population dependent on the one emergency department. Will you commit to the reinstatement of Ennis Emergency Department and the necessary planning to take place?
Thanks to Deputy Wynne. So the clinical advice isn't to reopen more emergency departments. However, there is a need and a desire and a good thing to make other hospitals within the hospital group, including Ennis, busier in terms of the volume of work that they do and the range of services they provide. That I definitely believe in. Look, University Hospital Limerick, since this government came to office, has seen its staff numbers grow by 1,183, its budget increase by 45%, already has 98 new beds opened, has a range of other initiatives the Minister announced last week. There's a real need now in return for investment, for reform and delivery, and I'm looking to the management in UHL to step up in relation to that.
Thank you, Deputy Paudie O'Sullivan.
Thanks, Cancórla. Taoiseach, I'd like to make the case, like Deputy Bacik earlier, for the thalidomide survivors once again. Over a year ago, members of my own parliamentary party met with Sandra Sweeney, who was making the case, that a public apology would, and it's deserved for the survivors. And unfortunately, as Deputy Bacik has referred to, Elizabeth Sweeney herself passed away in the last few days. So that now by the thalidomide survivors count, there's 5 mothers remaining from that period and about 40 survivors in total. So many of those mothers are living with the guilt and shame, the fact that they took medicine and at that time didn't know of the ill effects that it would carry onto their children. The British have issued a state apology many years ago. The Australians have done it over a year ago. When will Ireland consider making a public apology to the thalidomide survivors? I would ask that I've raised this with my own party leader when he was Taoiseach. We've raised it with Taoiseach Varadkar, and we're now raising it with Taoiseach Harris. I think it needs urgent consideration. Thank you.
Taoiseach.
Well, thanks very much to Deputy O'Sullivan and Ciaran. I'll reflect on what the Deputy has said. I am very much aware of the thalidomide group of survivors. I'm very much aware of the issues they've raised. I'm very much aware of the work that has been going on. In fairness to your party leader and my colleague, the Taoiseach, since he became Taoiseach and since then, I will reflect on what you've said, and I do intend to have engagement with the group very shortly.
Thank you. That concludes questions on promised legislation. Agus the Derry Gano, Namajana, Glachamid Susanish, Urikli, Guramaga, Verfat.